Hello, we start in 4 minutes. If you have any questions, type them in the chat box and I'll answer them during the live. And today we have a guest. Ciao, Gioio. Three minutes to go. This is our guest for today. His name is Ciro. He's also learning languages. He will share with you his struggles in learning languages. Guardare di là. Di qua, sì, qua. You're free to ask questions at any time, and I'll answer them during the live. You don't need to wait until the end. Also, I'd like to know. Buongiorno, Elena. Oh, we meet again. No? I'd like to know where you're from. How long have you been studying Italian or any other language? Che pappagallo carino. Ti fanno già i complimenti. Ti facciamo la pagina, ti facciamo il fan club. Faremo un canale YouTube solo tuo. I'm staying with friends. I'm helping with the pets. There's also a cat, but the cat, if I keep the two together, we lose one of them. 1 minute to go. Dove sono? Sono in Giappone, a Yokohama, in Giappone. Sono le 9 di mattina. I'm in Yokohama, Japan. It's 9 a.m. And his name is Ciro. He is 4 years old. He can talk, but now he's being silenced. I cannot order him to speak. Ciao, mi piace il tuo uccello. That's a sentence that that I like to hear, certainly. You don't know why. Anyway, yes, I also like this bird. Yes, very cute. It's 9 a.m. 9 a.m. here in Yokohama, Japan. Let's start this. Hello, my name is Stefano. I'm from Italy. I'm an Italian language teacher and serial language learner. Today's guest, can you hear him? Today's guest is Ciro. He's a bird. He's 4 years old. And he's learning languages too, but with mixed results. We discuss his method so that you don't make the same mistakes. Can you hear the bird? Maybe I should put the microphone closer to him. Today I'll share with you my tips to learn Italian or any language faster based on my experience as a teacher and a learner. You can hear him. He will entertain you throughout the webinar. And I also welcome your questions about learning languages in general, about the Italian language specifically, or anything I can answer publicly. I start with my best tip. If you've already watched my past webinars, you might have heard it, and it is that you should be speaking that language. I see you should do like him, speaking all the time, because usually study time is skewed towards grammar and translation, and people just don't speak. And especially if your ultimate goal is to communicate with people, typically through speaking, you do need to speak with people. And if it's easy if you take lessons, septuagenarian language learners. Well, I don't have any. John is asking about seniors learning languages. Hello, Kim. It's well, it takes more time, but there's no specific tip. I mean, the process is the same. You work with the different material. Yeah, it's easier to forget. I see with my own students, it's easier to forget, and it takes more time. It takes less time to forget and more time to learn. But I can't really say anything special. You could reinforce learning even more by repeating or taking lessons more frequently, so you have less time to forget. It could be in small bits, but it should be every day. It's like doing sports. Every day you don't practice, you lose something. Ciao Arche, mi piace il cello, il violoncello. Ah, good. I used to play violin and piano a bit. Then I focused on singing. Joyo's wisdom is never give up. I agree. Never give up like Chiro. He keeps talking and he will do that until we finish this. I was talking about speaking. You find there's plenty of more or less well-designed apps and courses online, also textbooks, old school textbooks that contain everything you need. But then how do you use them? You read it if it's a book, you listen if it's audio, you watch it if it's video, you play with it, you type if it's an app, and then you're so happy because if you ever used Duolingo, you know what I mean. But at the end, you clicked your way through the lesson without uttering a word. And then when you actually need to say something to someone, you realize that something is missing. It's not inherently wrong in the tool, in the app, in the course, but you're lacking speaking practice. You retain less if you don't speak, if you passively read or watch or listen. That's why I made my own learning resources for the Italian language, and I called it Ripeti con me. It's called Repeat After Me. If you haven't tried it yet, you can start a 7-day free trial, no commitment. And if you take a couple of lessons, but in a row, like once a day, every day, you already feel the difference. In a couple of days, you'll find yourself actually thinking in Italian because the, the audio in the lesson doesn't give you enough time to translate in your head. That's what typically people who studied a lot of grammar and translated but never spoke with people do in their head. That's a common problem. When I give one-on-one lessons on purpose, I don't give too much time to the student to think, because what they do is that they look for the best word or the right conjugation, and it takes ages, and they're all doing it in their head from one language to another, and you lose the flow. That's not what you need to become fluent. You might become a good translator. If you study Latin, for example, you can get by with grammar and translation because the Romans are all that. So there's no need to speak with anyone. But if you want to speak with people, practice speaking. The second one, if you have any questions, type them in the chat. John, I think your technology is not the best to learn. You hear spesso when the translation is stesso. I mean your technology, your speakers, or your brain. It's well, it's totally normal to miss some parts of a word, even and whole words, or even whole phrases, especially the first time you hear them. The speakers, well, that's an easy fix. If it was about your brain, that would be harder to replace, but your speakers, you can always get better ones. While waiting for your questions, I'll move on to a second tip that is related to the first one, because you should be speaking, but then what? What should you be saying? You need someone or something to show you how to say things. Linguists have a fancy word for that. It's called comprehensible input. Comprehensible means that you understand it. It's not too difficult. You know what it means. And input is because you hear it or see it, read it. And then you have some useful, real material that you can take as a reference and repeat it. And it works because you know what it means, and you can track back words to words. You get an idea of what or why you say that way eventually, even if no one explains that to you. That's the way we all learned at least one native language when we were children. And then we forget about this method and we start studying languages in school as we do with other subjects like math or geography. But that's how we all learn to speak languages. And Ciro, today's guest, has this problem that in spite of his efforts, because he is repeating what he hears in the surroundings, not specifically from me, but from my friends every day. And he repeats, but I have the impression that he just doesn't know what he's saying. Do adult language learners tend to first become strong in reading and writing before speaking? Yes, that's typical, but I wouldn't say that that's necessarily it's inevitable. It's just the way it is, because people tend to study in a certain way that naturally makes progress in reading and writing faster than in listening and speaking. But me, typically, since I only use audio material, I don't use virtually any written material. I take lessons on Skype, one-on-one lessons. So I'm speaking all the time. When I'm alone, I use audio courses, like my own one, but for other languages. And then I speak with people on Skype. And so my speaking skills are usually are better than my writing skills, reading skills. Then I also do some writing. I post my homework. I used to post my homework on Italki, the largest platform to learn languages. Now they disabled that feature. But my main bread and butter is speaking. And so I naturally become more fluent in speaking than in reading or writing. And actually, that's you could say, natural way to learn languages, because there are about 7,000 languages in the world, and 6,000 languages don't even have a script. They cannot be written. Even if you wanted to learn them written, they just don't exist in a written version. Do you understand how the words look since you learn speaking first? If it's a phonetic alphabet, A, B, C, or alpha, beta, gamma, if it's Greek, or Cyrillic, if it's Russian, I can, but you don't need much effort to learn the letters, and then you can track the sounds between writing and listening. Also because I always have my tutors on Skype type the new words or type the correct version of the mistakes that I make. And so I can pair the audio with the writing on the spot. For totally exotic languages, Chinese, that's totally different. You cannot guess. But still, you can have your teacher type it in, and they tell you this is how you write what you just said, how you read it, and then you have a reference. But in any case, even for Chinese, that is very demanding with all those characters, start from audio, and then you find out how to write all those sounds. Also because just psychologically, it's can be discouraging to see all those funny signs and you don't know what to do with them. There is they call it transliteration. It means that it's not a translation, but for example, we say sashimi, raw fish, Japanese raw fish. You don't know what sashimi, you know that it's raw fish because you already know it, but you couldn't infer that from the word. And you can write it. You write S. That's not Japanese script. That's called transliteration. And you can transliterate everything and read the fake version of it. But there are textbooks that are all like that, Chinese textbooks. I do not recommend it. You should learn the real script. If you go for writing and reading, go for the real thing. My brain likes to see the written word along with the speaking to reinforce. Wish you could speak with someone. Well, yes, that's the point. Ideally, you should be speaking with someone. It takes well, it takes money, and you might also be too busy to schedule. So, and you also have some dead time in your daily life, commuting, and so you can still make use of your time by speaking to yourself, and it still works. You like to see the written word. I know what you mean. Sure, if you're missing like a whole sentence, you're left without any clue. That happens. Also, to me as a learner with similar courses, that's part of the process. So I already know how it works. I don't freak out if I'm missing even half of the lesson. But yeah, people get scared. That's why I give the option in my lessons to hide and show the script, the transcript. But in any case, I recommend that the first time you take the lesson, you rely on audio only. Resist the temptation to look at the transcript. And after you went through the whole lesson, then review with the visual aid of the transcript. Because if you start reading, then you stop the audio and you lose the flow. And also, if you rely on audio only, you can literally do anything or anything that doesn't use languages, like walking, cooking, doing workout, commuting, and you make a lot of time of free time to study. Yeah. And we are talking about Shiro. He is repeating a lot of stuff, but he doesn't know what he's saying. He has a lot of input that's not comprehensible for him. So he's still literally parroting what he hears, but he's not really fluent. But that's a biological limit that he cannot overcome, and he's still happy this way. Especially when he's out of his cage. He's very happy, even he doesn't understand what he says. Yeah. If you have any other questions, type them in. We still have about 10 minutes. Usually I keep this to half an hour. And well, the third tip is since we said we should be speaking, but a lot of material is not made for speaking practice. Say a book, or you watch videos on YouTube, let's say. You can still turn all your study time into speaking practice. Oh, there's a question. Are all RCM is ripeti con me, repeat after me, my Italian language course. Carefully planned to gradually increase the difficulty. Specifically, lesson 36, dropped in difficulty, multiple phases, several new words, verb tenses. Look, I made it from scratch. Ideally, it should be all gradual. Yes, you're right. And it should be linear and gradual. Then there are just some leaps when you start. Could be a totally new verb tense. Let's say you start the subjunctive or the past tense. Then that's new. So the leap is certainly wider than other lessons when you learn just a new word, for example, or, A or B, or because and why. Then, for some people, since usually people have already studied on their own, they have some knowledge, and their study plan, study history, might not overlap with my plan. So you already know something is easier for someone, but it's new for someone else. And finally, yeah, I might have decided, I don't remember what I can check it live, what lesson 36 is about. They're still for beginners. 36, there are 249 lessons. Appena this is as soon as. So the lesson itself is about appena. It means as soon as. The grammar itself is not difficult. It's only this word. Then what? Maybe the sentences are longer. I didn't do it on purpose, honestly. But the point of the lesson is to practice appena. You don't need to understand everything. And that's the case for any lesson anyway. That's not the purpose of every lesson. Why parrots learn to repeat a human speech? What's the use of that? I admit that I'm not an expert. Why they repeat human speech? Indeed, they repeat human speech. I never heard him repeat. They have a cat, but he never meowed. Maybe because the cat doesn't meow enough, or maybe they prefer parroting humans. It would be fascinating to know. John is stuck on lesson 36. If you're stuck on a lesson, you never be stuck on a lesson. Move on to the next one. If you understand 60 to 80% is still useful. And then when you hit a limit, you hit a wall, go back a few lessons, and you realize that you already understand more of those lessons. I do that also when I use the similar course. I would do that. I don't get scared. So even if I understand like half of it, I don't mind. And then I go back 10 lessons, and I feel that I already got better. But don't get stuck on it. Yeah, 70% is certainly enough. And anyway, the lesson is about one grammar pattern. Maybe you find it again, you can review it in the following lessons, and maybe you don't see it anymore, and so it's not a hindrance. Or don't feel obliged to reach perfection. Just move on to the next lesson. Is there any benefit to watching a video in native language with subtitles in target language? You say native language and target language. I thought they would mean the same thing. Let's say that you are learning Italian. You watch the video in Italian with the subtitles in, you mean Italian or English? You should watch it in Italian, everything in Italian. That's more effective. Even if you don't understand everything. I remember an experiment about this. One without subtitles, one with English subtitles, one in the target language. And the best one, slightly better, was native subtitles. Even better if you try to repeat what you hear, especially the highlights. Joey, I've been taking your course for a couple of months. I like it a lot. I also like the supplemental materials. Oh, thank you. Grammar, expressions. Yes. I keep the supplemental, as you said, supplemental material separated from the audio lesson, especially the grammar notes, because else people first read the grammar notes. I don't want you to read the grammar notes. Ideally, I don't want to read the grammar notes at all. Me as a learner, I never read grammar notes, but people expect them. So I added them also because they generate traffic, so people find my website, and I keep them public. But the audio course is the audio course. Keep the flow and do it. Then after that, you might want to check the grammar notes. And yeah, there's plenty of material. There's a huge blog, the readings, bilingual readings, especially if you want to be exposed to real world material. These are simplified texts, but they're still things that even natives would enjoy it. And you get the audio, the transcript, and the translation. It's a controlled environment because it's simplified, so you can find material that matches that suits your level, but it's still really enough to be interesting. You can do, if you do a lesson of repeat after me a day, that's every day, your daily ritual. And then some readings, even more than one, they're shorter, they're only 1 minute in audio. And then you review the reading the day after also. Repetition works with any material. And you do it after a night of sleep. There's no point in repeating over and over many times, but after a night of sleep, that's the ideal timing. Elena, how to really start speaking? I can communicate with native speakers in Italian. I understand 90% instead of speaking, go slow. That's typical, but if your conversation partners are patient enough and don't switch to English right away, as many, even trying to be good, as many do because they think they're helping, you will improve gradually, but make no mistakes that the more you speak, you also should resist the temptation to switch to English. Sometimes, personally, I shouldn't, but I become nervous, almost angry when native speakers switch to English, thinking that they are nice. But I'm learning the language, so I don't want them to. But I cannot demand that they stick to it because I'm not paying them to talk with me. Kim Bryan also likes the supplementary materials. Good. There's always something new on the website. We are publishing stuff every day, readings. Well, Ripeticum is done for now, but all the other sections are being continuously expanded. Blog posts with study tips, the readings, also the grammar notes, and still adding them. Good. John I watched the Sophia Loren movie yesterday, today, and tomorrow. The dialogue was too fast. Yeah, people have this thing that they want to learn with movies or with the news, with music. That's very sophisticated, elaborated, articulated, structured, very native material. And that's more of a goal, but it's not. Me personally, and I rarely use movies to learn languages, because unless I'm already at least an intermediate level, because they speak fast, there's noise, there's a lot of slang, idioms involved. It's not for beginners. Unless you're studying a very similar language. When I was studying Portuguese, for example, I would listen to Brazilian online radio channels. After a couple of months, I was already understanding 90% because it's very similar. So you can, this means this means this. Kind of test. I'm not for tests in general. Yeah, people want a proof of the progress, but you should just book a lesson with someone like once a month and ask them if you're better or not, because a test shows that you're good at solving the test. It doesn't reflect your skills. Apps have this, and you say, oh, you learned 348 words this week, and you're, oh, did I didn't know I'm so good. And then go speak with people, and you're, oh, I do have some tests in the public section. There's a test section, and there are multiple choices. Yeah, if you go on my website, if you have an account on the dashboard, tests, and you find 7 tests, and for each question Each question covers something from a specific lesson of repeat after me, so you even know what to review if you get it wrong. Elena is not passionate enough to switch to English. That's a motivational thing. I cannot help with that. Kelly is curious what I love about learning languages. I'll make a confession. Yeah, languages are about communication. For me, it's more about self fulfillment. I enjoy the process. I enjoy learning and putting in practice what I learned. It's a way to express myself and also to hear new things from people, see the world and so on. But for me, I like the intellectual aspect. It's like a workout for my brain. But everyone finds something different, some different pleasure in learning languages. If you have an important person in your life, then it already has a different meaning. The grammar notes are perfect. Thank you. So in the beginning I used to write them. Now I have some very skilled writers do it for me, and they know that they should make them easy to understand and for normal people, not for linguists, and with a lot of examples. It's not the grammar notes you find in a reference book with like a huge paragraph to say the rule when you could show just a couple of examples. No. But first, take the audio lessons and then check the notes. Okay, you took those tests, yes. Yeah, I could make more. Yeah, maybe I will make. I'm about to remake, to redesign, to change the technology behind Ripeti con me to make it more modern, more look like an app, but still with the same method. It forces you to speak, and with that new platform, I should be able to easily use all the sentences also for tests, like arrange them in a different way or leave a blank and so on. Because as it is now, well, it's handmade. I made everything by myself, but I'm not a developer. I reached my limit, but I'll do that. And if you have suggestions, so before I make changes that are not what you want, maybe, or I don't make changes that you might like. If you have any suggestions, get in touch, drop me an email, and I'll take them into account. Good. It's already, yeah, it's about time. I'm hungry. I only had a banana, and so say goodbye. It's important to hear your own voice clearly. Doing ASEAN, yes. If you use this one, they're almost like earplugs. Yeah, I can't hear myself. Then you start shouting. Oh, look, even if you don't really speak, like I used to take when I lived in large cities, in Tokyo, Taipei. I was studying language. I was taking this kind of lessons, so I was repeating what I was hearing, and I was in the subway, and I was speak to myself, blah 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 blah, and it looks like you're crazy. I would mumble like inside my mouth. It still works. It still works. But yes, you feel more comfortable if you can hear yourself, sure. No. Yeah, so this kind of headphones could be better. Say goodbye to Chiro. Chiro is not fluent, but he's happy. And he doesn't get discouraged. He doesn't understand, and he keeps speaking, listening, and repeating. And you should do the same, knowing that you are smarter than Chiro. Ciao.